everybody, this is Doug Kenny from Stories from Motorsports, and today we have Jimmy Kite with us. Hey, how you doing?
Not too bad. Looking forward to this.
Awesome. Where are you at the moment?
Brownsburg, Indiana, at our house. Me and my wife Mindy live here. So,
Nice. What you have been up to these days since retiring from Indy cars?
me and Mindy own a sign and graphics company here in Brownsburg called Mindy's Brownsburg Signs. So that keeps us extremely busy since COVID. Before COVID, I was doing some driving instructing for Dodge and driving the pace car for the Ferrari John series. But we just once COVID hit, it everybody needed stickers and decals and stuff, and we just got swamped at the shop. And when the world started opening back up, I felt guilty leaving the shop, so now we just stay there full time, and it's growing. We're having a good time, and honestly, it's kind of nice being at home. I've traveled my whole life, and it's nice being home.
Yeah, where you been to?
Well, I mean, just racing wise, just around the country. I mean, I never did any of the overseas stuff, but I mean, growing up here, it was basically any pavement track in this country I've raced on, and most dirt tracks. So there's not many ovals in the United States I haven't been around.
For sure. So what made you get into racing?
It was just an addiction from when I was a kid. I mean, I my dad mechanicked on some Indy cars before I was born. By the time I was born, he was just doing the dad thing, mechanicking, working at a trucking company at the time. But he would take me every year to a practice day at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And I mean, I remember when I was one of my earliest memories, I was 4 years old, 4 or 5 years old, and I remember watching the Indy cars go around, and I thought that was really neat. And then around that same time, he took me to a dirt sprint car race in Farmington, Missouri. And I remember watching one of those cars come off the turn, and the front tires come off the ground and do a little wheelie on dirt. And I just remember right then thinking, God, I want to do this when I get older. This is what I want to do. And a couple years later, Dad had me in a quarter midget, and just kind of progressed from there.
How many midget races have you won?
Uh, I don't know total. It all happened so fast. Like, when I moved up here, I grew up in Georgia, so I moved here to Indianapolis like 2 days after I graduated high school in 1994. And that's back when ESPN had the Thursday Night Thunder series. And you had to get on TV. Jeff Gordon had just ran that, and Tony Stewart and a lot of those guys were running it at that time. So I came up here, and I just started getting into the midgets and running some midget races. And then in '95, I ran a couple Silver Crown races, but I actually went back down to the Southeast and ran a lot of sprint car races down there, pavement wing sprint car races, and actually won the pavement nationals that year at Lanier, Georgia. And then '96 was kind of all over the place, but then '97 it started, and that's when I won the Copper World. And that progressed. The next race we ran IRP, and I finished second, and that kind of opened the door to get me in the Indy cars. I know I won a midget race at Salem. It was either that year or the year after that, and I know won some other stuff. But it just once I got to the Indy car so fast, it things happened in a hurry.
For sure. So what was the first Indianapolis 500 you watched before racing?
1982. I remember that was the Rick Mears and Gordon Johncock one, and I remember it. My dad had actually knew Gordy and had worked on his cars at one point. So I just remember, I think I remember it because I thought it was really cool that the guy that just won the race, my dad knew, and it was a couple months later, he was actually in town signing autographs, and I got to sit in his car and talk to Gordy. And my first 500 in '98, he was actually in the garage a lot, trying to give me advice and talking to me about the speedway and stuff. So he heck of a guy, I thank the world of Gordy.
Yeah. Did you see how excited Rick Mears was in that race when he finished second to John Cock and was saying he had him everywhere but straight?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, Rick Mears, I mean, he's obviously one of the best there is at the Speedway. And he definitely had a good run that day. I mean, if it would have been anybody other than John Cock, Mears had that race won, just Gordy ran him as hard as you can run somebody and not wreck him. He ran him hard.
And Rick had such good sportsmanship afterwards, I would say, for a guy that lost the race.
Yeah, he is, but I mean that's Rick Mears. He's just an amazing human being. I mean, he just was like that all the way through, and even when he was done with it, and I would still get to talk to him here and there. I mean, one of my favorite pictures was a picture of, and it might have been my rookie year as well. Of we had a meeting at the museum just to kick off the month of May, and Rick Mears was there, and I'm an Indy 500 driver now, and all I could think of was I got to get my picture with Rick Mears. It's him. Look, that's Rick Mears, and he's just so grateful and gracious and just so awesome.
When did you race your first 500?
1998. I My first IndyCar race was actually two races after the 500 in 1997. I went to Pikes Peak, and that was my very first race. And I finished out that season, and then started '98 and made it, to the Indy 500. And that was my first one of off and on for about 10 years. I qualified eight, or I attempted to qualify for 8 years. 3 of the years we missed it, and 5 of the years I made it. So
What was it like when you missed a couple of them or a few of them?
the first one I missed, I remember that one was the most heartbreaking because I'd never missed one. Up until that point, I had made three in a row. This was my fourth try, and I was supposed to make it. We had practiced quick enough. We were fine. We were good all week, and they put a qualifying motor in it that was supposed to gain speed, and we lost a mile an hour. And it was qualifying weekend, and our other, we went back, the team didn't have a whole lot of money, so we didn't have another motor to put in it at the time. And so we just kind of tried to make the most of that one. And that was the most heartbreaking one because when the day was over on bump day and I knew I wasn't going to be in the 500, it's like I couldn't even stay around. I just wanted to get out of town. It was just, I didn't know it was heartbreaking. And then fast forward to the next year, and I was driving for PDM and qualifying morning. I mean, we were 2 miles an hour faster than bump speed. So again, I mean, I knew I was going to get in, and I'm in the car, motor running, getting ready to go out to make my qualifying attempt, and it starts sprinkling rain, and it never quit raining for the rest of the day. And field was set, and I never got to make an attempt. That one, that one was a hard one to swallow too. I remember me and Donnie Beechler still talk about it because Beechler was right behind me in line, and when I see him nowadays, we still talk about that one because we were both fast enough to get in that year, but it's part of the speedway. It can be nice to you and it can be cruel.
Yeah, for sure. What was it like in the 1998 race? Tell us exactly what you experienced.
It The pre-race was amazing. I mean, the pre-race now is still, even now that I'm done, the pre-race is what I miss the most. I miss the racing and everything, but it just the feelings you get in that, the excitement of what's about to happen. But back then, getting to see Jim Neighbors for the first, because I never went to the race. We'd go to practice, I'd go to qualifying, carb day, but I told Dad, I was like, I'm not going to the Indy 500 till I'm in a car. I knew one day I was going to be driving in the Indy 500, and so that was my first one to get to experience the front straightaway. And I remember even walking through Gasoline Alley out onto the front straightaway. When we tested there in April and when we practiced in May, the stands were silver. They're pretty empty. I mean, on the inside of the front straightaway, there's a bunch of people, but on the outside, it was empty. Pole day was a pretty good, group, but it's still nothing like race day. And I just remember standing there on the front straightaway, looking down the front straightaway, and then looking back into turn four and just in awe of the people. And even when we started going around the racetrack, scrubbing tires. I mean, I'm looking at all the people on the hill, and I mean, I was a sightseer for my very first lap. I wasn't doing anything I was supposed to be doing, but it was once the green flag came, and flew. It was just another race. Then you're racing guys you've been racing all year, and then it was like, okay, I gotta pass this guy, I gotta pass that guy, and we didn't have the best of race cars that day. It was a driver's nightmare. It was mechanically loose but aero tight, and those just aren't fun to drive, especially at Indianapolis in a 500-mile race. But we held on. We finished 11th that day, and that's for my first one, and for the way the car was handling to finish that good. We were happy we were able to roll it in the trailer at the end of the day.
Did you Do you think you had anything for Eddie Cheever, the winner, or no?
Not that year. No, no, we didn't. We missed a setup a little bit. We should have finished a couple laps. Like I should have been in the top 10. We made one bad mistake. We tried to extend our fuel window, and as soon as I went past the pit entrance, the car ran out of fuel. And I actually ran out of fuel on the back straightaway, and they had to throw a yellow, come tow me in. So we lost like 2 or 3 laps during that whole process and procedure. So I mean, when you look at the stats, when all said and done, I should have finished higher than I did, but no, we did not. That day we didn't have a race winning car. There were several times when I was with that team that we did have race winning cars, and something bit us in the butt, and we weren't able to win a race with that team. But that day at Indy, we didn't have a race winning car.